Welcome back to the course on Foundation Engineering. In our last class, we started talking about how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of the pile group. And particularly, we have seen how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of floating pile group in our last class. So in today's class, we'll be focusing on how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of pile raft foundation. Okay. So in the case of your pile raft foundation, how do we estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular pile raft foundation is what we are going to be looking at. So let's say this is my raft, or in fact, I can also call it as pile cap. But however, this pile cap, which is in turn called as your raft, is also going to carry some of the superstructural load by directly distributing onto the soil. And remaining portion of the load which cannot be directly transferred from your raft will be distributed through your piles which are existing in that particular pile raft foundation. Okay, let's say this is my pile raft foundation and somewhere here is my ground. The load is coming onto this particular pile raft foundation. So whatever the load that is getting transferred from the superstructure onto your pile raft, load on pile raft is distributed onto the soil partly through your raft and partly through your piles. Okay, so this is about the load distribution. So whatever load that is coming onto the pile raft, part of the load is distributed through the raft directly onto the soil on which the raft is resting, and some portion of the load is getting distributed through those group of piles which are existing in that pile raft foundation. So now let us try to understand, based on different modes of failure, what is expected to happen in that pile raft foundation, how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of your pile raft foundation or pile raft pile group. So first is based on individual mode of failure. So based on individual mode of failure means each individual element existing in that particular pile raft foundation will carry maximum load before it is said to be undergoing the failure. That is what we call it as your individual mode of failure. So in the case of pile raft foundation, what is this individual mode of failure based on which how to estimate your ultimate load carrying capacity of the pile raft group means? It is P ultimate is nothing but due to piles which are existing in the pile group, we have seen earlier, that's nothing but n number of piles if I have. So each pile existing in the pile group is said to be carrying maximum load before it is said to be undergoing the failure. So it is the ultimate load carrying capacity of the individual pile into n number of piles what you have. Plus additionally, apart from that, what we have seen in the case of floating pile group, here raft is also going to be playing a role in carrying some of the load what it can directly transfer onto the soil on which that particular raft is resting. So in such particular case, I can simply write it as, in terms of the load, if I want to write down, so I can write it as the ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular raft foundation, it's the bearing capacity of the raft, into the net area of the raft. Okay, so if I know what is the ultimate bearing capacity of the raft is nothing but a shallow foundation. We have seen in the case of shallow foundation how to estimate your ultimate bearing capacity of that particular shallow foundation. So ultimate bearing capacity of the raft is what I can calculate from your either Terzaghi's theory or Marov's or Vesich's or Hansen's theory. So based on which I can go on to estimate your ultimate bearing capacity of the raft from the generalized expression CNC plus QNQ plus half gamma Bn gamma. So as it is a raft, so depending on the shape of the raft, you will be applying what is called as your shape correction factors, depending on the theory what you are using. If it is Marov or Hansen's theory, then we'll be also talking about your depth correction factors, and depending on any other corrections like water table effect and other aspects also will be taken into consideration depending on the case what we are dealing with, and accordingly we'll be going ahead in estimating your ultimate bearing capacity of the raft. So once the ultimate bearing capacity of the raft is known based on the bearing capacity theories what we have seen, next we can go ahead in substituting the value of that ultimate bearing capacity in this particular expression, and we can go on to calculate what is the ultimate load carrying capacity of your pile raft foundation based on individual mode of failure. But however, here there is another term that is nothing but the net area of the raft. So what does this net area of the raft mean? Okay, so net area of the raft is nothing but, if you look at your raft, okay, this is my raft if I consider. So below the raft you have number of piles existing. So what is the area of the raft which is directly coming in contact with the soil below? Okay, so some portion of the area of the raft is directly connected to pile head, and remaining portion of the bottom of your raft is directly coming in contact with the soil. There only there is some amount of load transfer through that particular contact between the raft and the soil. Only some amount of load transfer is taking place. Okay, so then that particular net area of the raft is nothing but is what we can write it as total area of raft minus n into the cross sectional area of individual pile. Okay, so if I can remove the total cross sectional area corresponding to the n number of piles which are existing in that contact with the raft, so the remaining area is what we call it as your net area of the raft, through which the load distribution is directly happening from the raft onto your soil. So this is based on individual mode of failure. How do we estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of your pile raft? Now, based on your block mode of failure, okay, so based on block failure criterion, how do we estimate your ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular pile group? So in the case of your block mode of failure, if I am just trying to look at the plan view of that raft with the piles in that pile group arrangement, okay, so let's say these are my piles, what I am looking at. This is a block area. Okay, this dimension is what I am considering it as width of your block, and this dimension is what I am referring it as your length of the block. Okay, and the other dimensions what I can look at is width of the raft and let's say length of the raft. So larger dimension you are considering width, smaller dimension you are considering length. Say nothing like that. I am just referring it and accordingly calculating. The smaller obviously is what we consider as the width. Okay. So by knowing what is the width and other subsequent dimension of your raft, okay, so I can simply, instead of writing it as LR, let me write it as DR, so that will not have confusion in writing them. Okay, so once it is known, then how do we go on to estimate your ultimate load carrying capacity of your pile group? Now, once again, the ultimate load carrying capacity of this particular pile group based on block mode of failure, if I want to calculate, it's nothing but the ultimate load what is going to be resisted by the block plus the ultimate load what is going to be resisted by the annular portion of your raft. Now, what does this annular portion of the raft means? When you are looking at your raft and the portion of your block, okay, if this is my raft and this is the block is undergoing a failure. The block in the sense piles along with the soil in between is undergoing a failure, and the remaining cross-sectional area of the raft is individually undergoing the failure. When I say remaining cross-sectional area means this is that portion what I am trying to refer to. Okay, this remaining portion also would offer some resistance before it is undergoing the failure. Okay, so block is going to offer you some ultimate load carrying capacity, and the remaining annular portion of that particular raft would also be carrying some amount of load before that particular foundation is said to be undergoing what is called as the failure, because that amount of annular area of the raft is also directly in contact with the soil below it. So that portion of the raft also would certainly offer you some resistance before it is said to be undergoing the failure. So our objective is to first understand how to estimate your ultimate load carrying capacity of your block mode of failure, which we have seen in our previous case when we have discussed about your floating pile group. There we have already discussed in detail how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular pile group where a block mode of failure is happening. So that's in a similar way we can still go ahead in calculating the ultimate load carrying capacity of your pile group action where you have block mode of failure. And the other case is how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of your annular raft. That's nothing but the remaining portion of your raft region. So the ultimate load carrying capacity of the annular raft is what I can write it as the ultimate bearing capacity of that annular raft into the cross-sectional area. What is the cross-sectional area of the raft, which is directly in contact with the soil? Apart from the block area, what is the other remaining annular area of that particular raft? Okay, so if I know what is the annular area of the raft, and if I know what is the ultimate bearing capacity of that particular raft foundation, okay, then I can go ahead in calculating the ultimate bearing capacity of that particular annular raft, what I am looking at. Okay, so the annular area of that particular raft, is what I can write it as total area of the raft, which in fact what I can write it as BR into DR minus the area of that particular block cross section. That's nothing but B into D. Okay, so from that I can say what is the annular area of that particular raft portion, which is individually undergoing the failure, and the other remaining portion of the block which is individually undergoing the failure. Okay, and coming to the ultimate bearing capacity of your annular raft, it is as similar to that of your shallow foundation again, based on your generalized expression CNC plus QNQ plus half gamma B and gamma. So if you have confusion in estimating the ultimate bearing capacity of that annular raft, what you can do is the total area of the annular raft can be divided into portions. Maybe this I can consider it as, this region is what I can consider it as one part. This is another part. This portion is the third part. And this is your fourth part. So for each of it, you know what is the width, what is the length of that portion of the raft, and accordingly you can go ahead in calculating the ultimate bearing capacity of that particular portion of your raft. That's one way. Otherwise, consider the complete area of the raft, calculate your ultimate bearing capacity of that raft, and consider only the block area of the raft and calculate the ultimate bearing capacity for that particular portion of your raft. And then from the total ultimate bearing capacity of considering the complete cross-sectional area of the raft, subtract for the area corresponding to that of your block region. That's the other way. Either of the way what you follow, you'll be getting your ultimate bearing capacity. That what you will be getting, rather instead of calling it as ultimate bearing capacity, load carrying capacity, I should be calling it as load carrying capacity, because as we say, it's a uniform pressure distribution what is happening from the raft onto the soil. So whether you consider smaller part or larger part for considering calculating the ultimate bearing capacity, it still comes out to be the same. Okay, so once the ultimate bearing capacity is known, then you multiply it with the corresponding area of your annular raft, based on which you can estimate your load carrying capacity, which can be directly transferred from that annular area onto the soil before a block mode of failure is certainly getting developed in your pile raft foundation. Okay, so the way how we go ahead in calculating your block mode of resistance or load carrying capacity of your block before it is said to be undergoing failure, everything is already what we have seen in the case of your floating pile group. In same lines, we are also going to be calculating even here also for the case of your block mode of failure. Okay, so once your ultimate load carrying capacity of the pile group, it could be floating pile group or it could be your pile raft foundation, is known based on two different modes of failure. Okay, so let's say P ultimate is what I have calculated based on individual mode of failure, and P ultimate is what I have calculated based on your block mode of failure. Okay, so now what is going to be my ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular pile group? It could be floating pile group or your pile raft foundation. So lesser of P ultimate, what is calculated based on individual mode of failure and based on what is called as your block mode of failure. So based on these two criterions, two different modes of failure, if we calculate the ultimate bearing capacity, the lesser of those two will be considered as the ultimate load carrying capacity of that particular respective pile group. So once the ultimate load carrying capacity of that respective pile group is known, then we can go ahead in calculating what is the allowable load carrying capacity of that pile group as ultimate load carrying capacity by the corresponding factor of safety, what you can adopt in calculating the allowable load carrying capacity of that particular pile group. Okay, so what we have seen till now is to know how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of an individual pile, and then we went on to understand how to estimate the ultimate load carrying capacity of your group of piles, whether it is a floating pile group or whether it is your pile raft foundation, both based on your individual mode of failure in the pile group and based on what is called as your block mode of failure in your pile group. So after understanding this, let's go ahead and now understanding how to estimate settlements in pile group. So how are we going to estimate the settlements in your pile group foundation? Okay, it could be a floating pile group foundation or it could be a pile raft foundation. Or how are we going to estimate the settlements in that particular pile group? Okay, so if I am interested in estimating the settlements in my pile group, first let me know whether that particular pile group, what I am going to be talking about. Okay, let's say, let me start with your floating pile group. Okay, I am referring to the case of your floating pile group. Okay, now in the case of your floating pile group, whether that particular floating pile group is embedded in clayey soil deposit or whether it is embedded in what is called as sandy soil deposit. Okay, now I am referring to that of your floating pile group in clay. So let me start with the floating pile group in clay. Then later on we'll go ahead in understanding for the case of floating pile group which is in sand, how to estimate your ultimate load carrying capacity. And when it comes to your pile raft foundation, subsequently, not ultimate bearing capacity, the estimation of settlements. How do we do in the case of floating pile group embedded in clay and sand, and pile raft foundation which is embedded in clay as well as in sand. Okay, so in case if I want to estimate your settlements in the case of your clay soil deposits in your pile group foundation, what we need to understand is if that particular pile group is embedded in clay, the type of settlements what we are going to be coming across in that pile group is nothing but it is your immediate settlement and it is your consolidation settlement. Okay, so majorly the consolidation settlement what we'll be referring to is what is called as your primary consolidation settlement. But however, we also do come across with what is called as secondary compression settlement in that particular pile group, which is embedded in clay. Okay, so now let's start with by understanding how to estimate your immediate settlement, or rather the elastic settlement in the case of your pile group. Okay, so elastic settlement, which I am going to be writing it as SI in the case of your clay soil deposit. Okay, so immediate settlement, which I can write it as SI is equal to Q net into width of that particular pile group into 1 minus mu s square by ES into IF. Now, what does Q net indicate in this particular expression? Q net is nothing but net pressure, what is getting transferred from the foundation onto the soil, and B here indicates width of the pile group. Okay, let's say this is my pile cap, and here you have some number of piles connected to that particular pile cap. Now, what is this width of the pile group means? Okay, so in the plan, if I am looking at, okay, here is one pile, here is another pile. Let's say this is some pile group configuration what I am looking at. So the width of the pile group here indicates this dimension. Okay, this is what we call it as the width of the pile group. Okay, B refers to that of width of the pile group, mu s refers to that of Poisson's ratio of soil, and ES refers to that of your Young's modulus value of the soil, and IF refers to that of what is called as influence factor. Okay, so that's how we go ahead in estimating what is called as the immediate settlement that your pile group, particularly the floating pile group, is undergoing in it. And next, the consolidation settlement, that too particularly your primary consolidation settlement, if I am trying to talk about. Which I am simply writing it as SC. Okay, so we know that this primary consolidation settlement is what we can write it as CC into H naught by 1 plus E naught into log sigma I dash plus delta sigma by sigma I dash. Okay, where CC, we know what does it mean. H naught is nothing but it's the height of the clay layer in which that particular consolidation settlement is taking place. E naught refers to that of the initial void ratio, and sigma I dash is nothing but the initial effective stress at the center of that considered depth of the clay layer in which consolidation settlement is taking place. Delta sigma indicates increment in vertical stress at the center of the clay layer. And once I know how much is the initial effective stress at the center of the clay layer, how much is the increment in vertical stress at the center of the clay layer, then I can go ahead in calculating what is your consolidation settlement that you are going to have in your clay soil, in your pile group foundation, which is embedded in clay soil deposit. But however, there is something which we need to be very careful about. Okay, let's look at this particular pile group. This is my pile cap, and let's say this is one pile, this is another pile embedded in a homogeneous clay soil deposit. Okay, so this dimension indicates the length of the pile, which we write it as L, and this is what we call it as your width of the pile group. In the same way, in the other direction, you will be having the length of that particular pile group. Now, when this particular piles, what I am trying to look at, okay, so in the estimation of your primary consolidation settlement, one thing what is very important for us is to know what is the height of that particular clay layer in which the consolidation settlement is happening. Now, how do we know what is the height of the clay layer in which the consolidation settlement is happening? Let's say, for example, your foundation, what I am looking at is embedded in a clay soil deposit, and it is completely clay soil deposit only. I have a clay layer of some 20 meters. Now, the height of the clay soil strata, what I am going to be considering, will it be 20 meters? Because saying that I have a clay soil strata which is of 20 meters thickness, so does it mean that H naught value, what we need to consider is 20 meters? Not exactly. What I should be knowing first is, what is the depth from where on the load transfer is happening through your piles? Whatever the amount of load that is getting distributed onto the piles, group of piles which are there in that particular pile group. So from what depth? Effectively, the complete load from that piles is assumed to be distributed onto the soil strata below. Okay, that is one thing what we need to first understand. Let's say if it is the case of end bearing pile or board piles. Okay, so if it is the case of an end bearing pile or a board pile, from what depth onwards the net load what is getting transferred from the piles group of number of piles which are existing in that pile group. So from what depth onwards the total load is assumed to be distributed from the piles onto the clay soil strata. So as the name itself says, it's an end bearing pile. So whatever the load that is getting distributed onto that number of piles in the pile group, so the total load transfer is assumed to be happening from the bottom of your piles. That's nothing but from the tip of the piles only, the uniform pressure is assumed to be distributed from the tip of your piles onto the soil which is there below that. Now, what does it mean? Okay, it means that the load transfer from the piles is happening typically only from the bottom of the piles, not above and not in the region of the clay strata which is above the tip of the pile. So consolidation settlement is not expected to happen in the soil layer what is existing over this much depth. Okay, so your consolidation settlement is not going to be happening in the soil layer which is above the tip of the pile. Rather, the consolidation settlement in the clay layer which is there below the tip of the pile is only going to play a role in defining you how much amount of consolidation settlement is going to be happening in that particular pile group foundation. Okay, so we are going to be typically looking at the load distribution. So what we understand is a uniform load distribution is expected to happen over the complete width and length of that particular pile group action. Okay, so we consider an equivalent region of a raft here. Okay, an equivalent representation of a raft here, where the load what is coming from those n number of piles is assumed to be uniformly distributed over that much width of the pile group and length of that corresponding pile group. Okay, so from this particular depth onwards only the load distribution is assumed to be happening. Okay, so now what is the depth of the soil strata which I should consider in which your consolidation settlements are going to be happening? So it's not in the complete depth of the clay strata whose depth is, let's say, whose thickness is some 20 meters. So not in that complete 20 meters your consolidation settlement is taking place in that clay strata. So only in the soil strata which is below the tip of the footing, we assume a uniform pressure distribution of 2:1. One horizontal, two vertical. This is one of the approximate method. There is another approximate method where the load distribution is assumed to be happening at a sloping at an angle of inclination 30 degrees. Okay, that's another approach. Okay, where this load distribution is assumed to be happening at 30 degrees inclination. That's another approximate approach. But we majorly refer to that of 2:1 vertical distribution of your load. And once I know what is the height of the clay strata in which the consolidation settlement is happening. Now, what is the height of the clay strata in which the consolidation settlement that I am going to be looking at? The height of the clay strata in which the consolidation settlement is happening is only this much height of the clay strata. Okay, so H0 is going to be the height of the clay strata in which the consolidation settlement is happening. And if I know what is the H0 depth of the clay strata in which consolidation settlement is taking place, then I'll try to understand where is the center of that particular clay strata. And at that center region of that clay strata, we go on to calculate how much is the corresponding increment in stress because of the load what is getting transferred from the bottom of your number of piles existing in that particular pile group. Okay, this is one of the case what we are coming across, that is in the case of your end bearing piles. The equivalent area of the raft for load distribution is assumed to be happening from the tip of your piles existing in that pile group. Okay, so that is in the case of your end bearing piles. Next case is in the case of your frictional piles or displacement piles, we also call them as. So in this particular case of the pile, let's say this is my pile cap. Here is one pile. Here is another pile. Okay, so typically if the load transfer, what is expected to happen is only in the form of friction through the surface of the pile. So the net effective depth from where the load distribution is expected to be happening considering an equivalent area of the raft. Okay, in the case of your purely frictional piles, okay, if I say this is the length of the pile, in the case of end bearing pile, from the bottom of the pile the load distribution is happening. In the case of frictional pile, what we assume is typically at the center of your or at the mid height of your pile, that is nothing but at a depth of L/2, we consider an equivalent portion of the raft. That means equivalent portion of the raft in the sense a uniform pressure distribution to be happening due to the load what is getting transferred from the group of piles, frictional piles particularly. So your uniform pressure distribution is represented at a depth of L/2 and with a sloping distribution of 2:1. So now what becomes, if this is my harder strata, what is available, then what is going to be my thickness of the clay layer in which the consolidation settlement is taking place. Okay. So my thickness of the clay layer in which the consolidation settlement is going to be taking place is this much height, H naught. And once the H naught value is known, because ultimate objective what we are looking at here is understanding how the H naught value is to be calculated for estimating your consolidation settlements in that particular pile group. So if H naught is known, then we simply come back and substitute into that expression to calculate your so-called consolidation settlement. So once the H naught is known, then we'll try to understand where is the center of that H naught thickness of the clay layer. And once the center of the H naught thickness of the clay layer is known, so at that center, how much is the corresponding increment in vertical stress is what we are going to be calculating. And once that is known, then we can simply go ahead in finding out your subsequent consolidation settlement. This is in the case of your frictional pile. In the case of end-bearing pile, the load transfer or uniform pressure distribution is assumed to be happening by considering an equivalent raft region from the bottom of the pile. In the case of frictional pile, it is assumed to be load transfer is assumed to be getting distributed by considering an equivalent region of the raft for load distribution from half of the length of the pile. When it comes to the case of your because typically you don't come across with what is called as purely an end bearing pile or a purely a frictional pile. You'll be coming across in most of the cases with what is called as both end bearing and frictional pile. So in the case of both end bearing and frictional pile, from what depth the load distribution is assumed to be happening. Okay, so typically in the case of end bearing pile, the load distribution happens from the bottom of the pile. In the case of your frictional pile, load transfer happens from the mid height of your or half of the length of the pile. In the case of your both end bearing and frictional pile, the load distribution is assumed to be happening. Let's say this is my pile cap. This is my pile here, this another pile here. So in the case of your both end bearing and frictional pile, so load distribution do not typically happen from the bottom of the pile or do not typically happen from half of the height of the pile. Rather, it is going to be in between the region which is going to be between if I say this is L/2 distance, this portion is nothing but referring to that of L distance. So in between L/2 to L, you are going to be looking at the consideration of your equivalent portion of your raft through which the load distribution is considered to happen. And this depth is what we consider as 2/3 of the length of your pile. So from a depth which is equal to 2/3 of the length of the pile, we consider a uniform pressure distribution to be happening at a sloping distribution ratio of 2:1. So with this, we'll try to understand where we are going to have the, what is going to be your height of the clay layer. Okay, this is going to be my height of the clay layer in which the consolidation settlement is what we are looking at. So once the height of the clay layer is known, then we'll try to locate where is the center of that clay layer existing, and at that center of the clay layer, how much is the initial effective stress, how much is the increment in stress is what we calculate, and accordingly we go ahead in calculating your subsequent consolidation settlement in that particular pile group foundation which is embedded in clayey soil. So once the immediate settlement is known, once the consolidation settlement is known, then you can go on to calculate what is your total settlement that particular pile group is undergoing. Okay, and when we have discussed about shallow foundation settlements in shallow foundation, there also we said shallow foundation which is embedded in clay soil deposits. We have talked about immediate settlements, how to estimate. We have talked about consolidation settlements, how to estimate in the similar manner. Okay, only difference between that case and this case is there we know what is the thickness of the clay strata in which your consolidation settlement is happening, but here we are trying to understand what is the thickness of that clay layer in which typically the consolidation settlements are taking place. That is something what we are additionally learning about in this particular case. Next, let us see How to estimate? Yeah. So once the immediate settlements are known, once the consolidation settlements are known, then we'll also talk about the corresponding corrections that are to be applied for the immediate settlement, what you have calculated, and the consolidation settlement, what you have calculated. Earlier, whatever we have seen for calculating your corrected immediate settlement value. So where we have talked about rigidity correction factor, where we have talked about depth correction factor. Similarly, we also talk about the respective correction factors even here also. In the case of consolidation settlements, the corresponding corrections what we have talked about, that's your rigidity correction, depth correction, and your consolidation effect correction. So the same correction factors we also be will also be talking about here. Accordingly, based on which we'll be trying to calculate your corrected settlements for immediate or elastic criterion and corrected settlement for consolidation criterion. And once the correction settlements are corrected for, then we go on to calculate what is your total settlement, corrected value of your total settlement. That is corrected immediate settlement plus corrected consolidation settlement. Anyhow, while solving a problem, we'll be discussing about that little more in detail, like after calculating immediate settlement, how do we correct it for, after calculating primary consolidation settlement, how do we correct it for to calculate your final settlement in that particular foundation. Next, in case if your pile group what we are talking about is in sandy soil deposit. Okay, so if you have your pile groups in sand, how do we estimate your settlements in that particular pile group? So we have some empirical relation which is given by Skempton in 1953, based on which we can see how to estimate your settlements in the pile group in sand. Okay, so where same intensity of load transfer is happening through each of that pile existing in that particular pile group. So for same load on each driven pile. So as we said earlier, we are going to be mostly talking about driven piles in the case of sandy soil deposits, because it's not possible to make boreholes, or it is rather more difficult to make boreholes and then construct your piles in your sandy soil deposit. So we mostly discuss about what is called as your driven piles in the case of your sandy soil deposit. So the expression what Skempton has given is the ratio of settlement in the case of your group piles to that of the settlement in an individual pile is given as 4 into B plus 2.7 divided by B plus 3.6 whole to the power of 2. Okay. In this particular expression, what does each of the term indicate? B here indicates width of the pile group. So in our previous discussion, I have already clearly mentioned what does that width of the pile group mean. Okay, and this particular width of the pile group, the dimension what I am supposed to be substituting into this expression should be in meters. In meters, I have to substitute that value into the expression. And SG refers to that of settlement in pile group. So how much is going to be the settlement in that pile group is what is indicated as SG, and SI here indicates the settlement in individual pile. So for calculating the settlement in your pile group, I should be knowing what is the settlement that your individual pile is going to be having in it. How much will be the settlement in the individual pile because of the load what is getting transferred through that individual pile. So how do we estimate the settlement in the individual pile means based on what is called as your pile load test. Okay, based on what is called as pile load test, we can try to understand how to estimate the settlement in your individual pile. Okay, which we'll be trying to talk in our next class, our next couple of classes, where we'll be trying to talk about what is called as your pile load test. From that pile load test, we'll try to understand what is the ultimate load carrying capacity of an individual pile by performing what is called as the field test, and for that load what is being transferred through the pile, how much amount of settlement that your pile is undergoing is what we'll try to understand from that. So from your pile load test, if I know how much is the allowable settlement that your individual pile is going to have, so based on that I can go on to estimate how much is your corresponding settlement in that particular pile group. This is one way. Or otherwise, we have got some other approaches which are given by Vesic or Mayoff, based on which also we can try to estimate how much is going to be the settlement in the case of your individual pile. They are theoretical approaches based on which you can estimate the settlements in your individual pile. So once the settlements in the individual pile is known, then I can go ahead in calculating how much is going to be the settlement in your pile group foundation. And we have got another empirical relation which is given by Mayoff way back in 1959 for estimating the settlements in your pile group which is embedded in sand. But that particular pile group for which the Mayoff has given this empirical relation is for a square pattern of arrangement of the pile group. Okay, so this expression what I am going to be talking about is in the case of square pile groups driven in sand. So for a square pattern of arrangement of those piles which are driven in sand, this expression is valid. Ratio of settlements in your pile group to that of your settlements in the individual pile is given as SR into 5 minus SR by 3 divided by 1 plus 1 by R whole square. So from this expression also we can go on to estimate how much is going to be the settlement in that particular pile group embedded in sand. Now what does the new terms here refers to? SR is indicating you what is called as ratio of pile spacing to pile diameter. So SR is what I can this means SR is nothing but it is defined as the ratio of center to center distance between the piles, that is what we call it as pile spacing, divided by the diameter of the pile. And in this expression the R, it refers to that of number of rows in the pile group. How many number of rows you have got in that particular pile group. So small r refers to that of the number of piles. SR indicates the ratio of center to center distance between the piles, that is spacing by the diameter of the pile. So once we know what is the ratio of pile spacing to that of the pile diameter and the number of rows in which that particular square pile group pattern of arrangement is done, then we can go on to estimate how much is going to be the settlement in that particular pile group, in which you are looking at how to find out how much is going to be the settlement in the pile group based on your settlements, what your individual pile in that pile group is expected to undergo. This is all about how to estimate settlements in the case of your pile group foundation, particularly in the case of your floating pile group. In the case of your pile raft foundation, let's say settlements in pile raft, if I am trying to talk about. So first important thing what we know, what we need to know is we should be knowing what is your allowable load. Once we get what is the ultimate load carrying capacity of the pile raft, ultimate load carrying capacity divided by your factor of safety will give you what is the allowable load carrying capacity of your pile raft foundation. So once the allowable load is known, because that allowable load what we are referring to is partly transferred through the raft and partly transferred through your piles. Now, how much allowable load is going to be distributed through the raft onto the soil? How much is the allowable load which is getting distributed from the piles onto the soil is what we cannot directly say. So what we need to do here is a kind of a trial and error process where let's say I might choose some combination of load transfer, maybe 20% of load through raft and remaining 80% through piles. So for this combination, for this considered case, I'll okay, if 100 kilonewtons is the allowable load, so 20% of load distribution happening through the raft means it means 20 kilonewtons is the load what is to be transferred through your raft. So for that 20 kilonewtons of load transfer, how much is going to be the settlement in your raft is what I'll try to estimate. So how do we estimate the settlement in the raft for 20 kilonewtons allowable load? So we'll go back to the way how we have estimated the settlements in the case of shallow foundation. So in similar way, we'll try to calculate your load which is going to be transferred through your raft. Okay, for that load, what is getting transferred through your raft onto the soil, how much is going to be the settlement in the case of your raft. And for the remaining 80% of your 100 kilonewton, that is nothing but 80 kilonewtons of load has to be transferred through your piles. Now for that 80 kilonewtons of load, what is going to be transferred through your piles, how much amount of settlement that your pile group is going to be having in it. I'll try to estimate it. Settlement happening in the piles and settlement happening in the raft should be one and the same, because by whatever amount of settlement that your pile is undergoing, the same amount of settlement that raft should also undergo, because the raft is connected to your pile head. If pile is moving by 10 mm, raft should also get settled by 10 mm. So that's how we are going to estimate whether the load combination what I have chosen onto the raft and onto the pile is correct or not. So for this load what is considered onto the raft, we go on to estimate the settlement in raft. Okay, for this load considered which is to be distributed through your piles, we go on to estimate the settlements in your pile group. Now, when the settlement what took place in the raft approximately comes out to be the same as that of the settlement what you have estimated to be there in your pile group, then considered load combination onto the raft and onto the piles is correct. In case if the settlement what you have estimated in the raft and pile group, if they are not coming out to be same, then it means that the load configuration what you have chosen onto the raft and onto the pile has to be modified, and then again you have to recalculate for another combination of load transfer through the raft and pile group. Let's say earlier combination didn't work out, so a revised load combination, maybe a 25% through raft and 75% through pile, or maybe 30% through raft and 70% through pile. So for different load combination, you should go on to calculate settlements happening in the raft, settlement happening in the pile group. And if those settlements coming out to be same, then it means that the considered combination of the load transfer through raft and pile is correct. And for that case, how much is the settlement that we are coming across is whatever the settlement that you have estimated in the case of the raft and pile group, which is coming out to be same. That is in fact what we call it as your settlements in the case of your pile raft foundation. Okay. So how are we going to estimate the settlements in the raft foundation? This is already what we have learned in the case of your shallow foundations topic. And how are we estimating the settlements in the case of your pile group? That's a pile group which is acting like a block, which is already we have seen in our earlier discussion. Okay, so based on that, we are going to be estimating the settlements in the case of the raft, settlements in the case of your pile group, and we'll be comparing whether those settlements what we have calculated is correct or not. Both of them are coming out to be same or not. If not, then vary the combination of the load which is assumed to be distributed through the raft and piles and recalculate the settlements until the settlements estimated in two individual cases come out to be same. Because theoretically what we understand is the amount of settlement that your pile group is undergoing, the same amount of settlement your raft which is connected to the pile group should also undergo. Okay, so until you get that settlements to be same, you keep varying your load configurations onto the raft and pile and accordingly proceed. And whenever you come across with the settlements which are same in the raft and pile group, then that amount of settlement is what we call it as your settlements in that particular pile raft, which is either embedded in clay or which is either embedded in sandy soil deposit. Okay, so that's how we go on to estimate the settlements what your pile group is undergoing. That could be a floating pile group, or that could be what is called as your pile raft foundation.